Okay, so today we will take up the next important, you know, Christian thinkers uh, after Saint Augustine. So you guys already are clear with Augustine's position on lex eterna, which you can also relate with natural law with that of lex humana. So that discussion is quite over. But if you guys still have any queries, you guys can always leave your questions in the comment section, and I will answer that. So uh, after a long period of time, so now you have the dark ages in Europe. So however, during this time, what do you see? That church has a complete stranglehold over the state. You also see papal supremacy. So but in the 11th century there was gradual shift again. I mean, there was demand for secular state. So church had to now fight that off. Okay, so church has to justify its authority over the state in these changing times. Of course it couldn't, because subsequently you see reformation and then you see enlightenment, all these things happening. But before all that could happen, one Christian thinker of great importance, okay, even if you are not a Christian, do not subscribe to the same idea of God as Abraham, people who believe in, who are of the Abrahamic religion do, even then his work is of philosophical importance. It is nonetheless interesting for us, whether you subscribe to their Christian's idea of God or not. So it is important that you study him as well. So yes, he is the next most important thinker in this natural law uh, that we've been studying from Christian theological perspective. Now he is important because of one very important work that he had done. Okay, he had written. It's by the name Summa Theologica. Okay, in this work he tried to give a rational, philosophical argument in favor of existence of God. Okay, in fact 5 arguments in favor of existence of God, and from that he also talks about different kinds of laws and relation between human laws ultimately with those God-given laws. Okay, so this is a work, although pre-scientific, in pre-scientific age, in the sense that not much scientific development had happened by at that time. Still, this was a like profound work on his part, in which he is trying to give some kind of logical, scientific explanation for the existence of God, which of course in today's time can be refuted with quite ease. Anyway, the work is nonetheless of importance for us. Okay, so we are going to study not everything. It's not possible for us, but I'm going to introduce what I think is important for you, and I'm not just going to restrict myself to those 4 different ideas of laws that is taught everywhere. I will also introduce his foundational argument that he lays down for the existence of God, and how that is used to justify this hierarchy of laws. Anyway, so the most important work that I told you guys about, is Summa Theologica by Saint Thomas Aquinas. Okay, Aquinas. So by virtue of this, what he essentially does is he restores the connection between law of this world with that of the cosmic order. Okay, so he's basically trying to revert it back to a kind of pre-Augustinian understanding. Okay, so what Stoics would say, okay, or what Aristotle would say. So they're essentially, what he essentially tried here is that he's trying to restore the link of law with that of the cosmic order, as we studied in pagan philosophy. And then he also accepted the Aristotelian argument of a cosmic hierarchy. Okay, so there is a hierarchy of things. I will give you the arguments that will make it clear what he is saying. Okay, he again accepted that idea of cosmic hierarchy of things. Okay, that there is a divine order. Okay, that the higher always moves the lower. Okay, So if there are cogs in a machine, so there has to be a source from which the power comes. So for every cog in the machine to move, okay. So something of that sort, a hierarchy of things, okay, of the order that Aristotle was talking about. He accepts that, okay. And then uh, another departure that you see in his work is that whether the coercive authority of the state was the consequence of original sin. Okay, so here, if you remember, what happens under Augustine was that yes, the coercion which is imposed now on people is merely for the sake of maintenance of peace, and it is not for moral exaltation. Okay, but under this here, okay, he is saying that it is very much within the nature of the law that for compliance, coercion is necessary. uh, so yes, these are some of the changes that you see in what, how he departs from Augustine, and basically it, revives the pre-Augustinian, pagan philosophy. Okay, so for Thomas Aquinas, state is not punishment, but is a natural, thing even in the state of innocence. But for Augustine, state, civil association was necessary because of fallenness, okay, because of human fallenness. But for Aquinas, no, that's not the case. Even if humans hadn't fallen, even then they would have ended up, for the sake of coexistence, they would have, you know, ended up creating the state. Okay, so state is not a punishment, but it's within our human nature. Okay, that's what, Aquinas talks about. So state now is back again, part of the divine order that, other pre-Augustinian philosophers, the pagan philosophers, were talking about. Okay. So yes, in the same way, political order is also not result of man's fall, but of natural order of things. So state, basically, political order is what? The state, essentially, is not the result of man's fall, but of a part of that entire chain of existence, that is there. So, and why do we need that? It is essentially to achieve unity, out of plurality of reasons. So what is being essentially said is that we all have our divergent reasons. Okay, we all have disagreements. Okay, however, the purpose of state is that of achieving unity in the middle of this plurality of reasons, because that would lead to chaos. So state's purpose is to restore order in the middle of the chaos. Okay, that's why, that's the justification for Aquinas again, in favor of the political order and of that of the state. Okay, however, this unitary end is not arising from activity directed to an objective end, but is part of God's dispensation for the governance of the universe. So do not take this idea of unity to be about something that is directed to one specific end. No, it's just the way things are to be governed. Okay, so but then for the time when he was writing his work, okay, the best possible system of government that he could see, that could achieve this unity that he's talking about, would be a monarchy. Okay, it's a monarch who will be able to achieve such unity. So many other questions could be raised about his theory as well. Anyway, I will not go. One more thing that you need to know about his theory is that for him, okay, laws, okay, he's also someone who believes, subscribe to the idea of rule of law in a somewhat different sense. Okay, so what is that? He says that law is the ordinance of reason for common good. Okay, law has to serve one particular purpose, and what is that? It is common good. Okay, for everyone's good. So if law does not serve that purpose of common good, essentially, if the purpose of law is to break down the society, so there is no rule of law. So you are justified in speaking against a law that tries to divide people, that tries to um, break down the society. You are justified in speaking against such a law, okay, because that is not law. That is over too much corruption of the law, according to him, okay. And such law will be made by the authority here. So, for example, in our case, it will be monarchy, according to Aquinas. Who has the care for the community? Who has to care for the community? Now, one question that you might raise is whether this monarch has to be someone who believes in the Christian God or not. Well, in this case, I think it will be preferred if it is someone who's believer of Christianity. Okay, but then as long as the monarch is the authority here is trying to protect common good, okay, the unity of the society, I think that's good enough for him. And last element of law that he identifies is very important is that law has to be promulgated, in the sense that law has to be declared, it has to be made known to everyone, so that before someone is bound by the law, he or she knows what the law is that is applicable on him or her. So yes, I will not go beyond this, okay, because you can go on discussing about different elements of law that he talks about, okay. So if this much is clear, then I will proceed on to his argument for for existence of God, okay, that he takes up. Why is that essential for us to know? Because you will see how those 5 arguments are related with that of his idea of hierarchy of law that he creates. Okay, so in Summa Theologica, he comes up with 5 different arguments in favor of God. Well, was there no one before him who had come up with philosophical argument in favor of God? Yes, there was Anselm, but we are not going to go study him. Let's take Aquinas, because we can go on otherwise. So Aquinas gives you 5 different explanation for the existence of God. The first one is that of prime mover. Okay, prime mover. So what does that mean? So you see that everything out there is in motion, isn't it? So for example, the earth is moving around the sun. The sun is also moving through the galaxy. Okay, you see the galaxy is also moving, and then you see that there are massive clusters of galaxy which are also moving. Okay, so everything is moving, isn't it? Okay, so what caused the motion? Okay, so you can say that, okay, I pushed this, so the pen is moving. Okay, but the pen was moved by my hand. Okay, and I moved my hand. Okay, so ultimately it was I who moved the pen. Okay, so anyway, try and understand this. Okay, so everything is out there, that you can see is in some kind of motion. Okay, but what started the motion? Okay, that's a question that comes to his mind. Okay, who must be the first mover? Okay, who must be the prime mover? So I was trying to give you guys an example earlier, that the cogs in a machine, okay, they keep going round and round, but they wouldn't do so without someone giving them that motion. Okay, so who's that? What is that entity that gives motion? Okay, so according to Aquinas, it has to be someone who is not bound by that rule. Okay, it has to be someone who's outside, who's not moving himself. But I'm saying him because we understand God like that, which is a bias again. So anyway, what he is essentially saying is that there has to be an unmoved mover. Okay, someone who moves everything else but doesn't himself or herself move. Okay, so that's his first reason for existence of God. So this would be, that unmoved mover would be the God according to Aquinas. But at this stage, I want to tell you guys about the fallacy in the argument. Okay, we accept that everything that moves has to be moved by someone else. Okay, so something else that is also moving. Okay, so if that's the reason, okay, if that's the rationale that we are using, then how could we think of something that can move something else without himself or herself moving. So that's basically something we are already assuming to be in existence. It is not based on any proof. Okay, so that's the fallacy that you can find in the first reasoning. In fact, that's the fallacy that you will also find in the second reasoning that he provides. Okay, the second reasoning is that everything that happens has a cause, isn't it? So the dominoes effect, okay, when push one of those dominoes, there's a domino effect that everything else falls. Okay, so that's the idea of causality, that everything that happens has a cause. Okay, and that cause will have another cause behind. Okay, and that cause will have another cause behind, and there will be a chain of cause. Okay, and if you keep going, there will be infinite regress. Okay, and infinite regress is something that doesn't make sense to him, that how could there be a previous cause for eternity doesn't make any sense. So it has to stop somewhere. Okay, so there has to be some causer who is not himself or herself caused. Okay, so that's the uncaused causer. Okay, so again, applying the same reasoning, is saying that God is the ultimate causer who is not himself or herself caused. Okay, so remember that hierarchy we were talking about, this is their understanding. Okay, that now these are very important way of thinking. Just imagine in the pre-scientific age, okay, when all these scientific developments hadn't happened, for someone to think of the world in that way, and then ultimately taking up a philosophical approach at justifying God, is a big achievement, I would say, even though that can be negated using other arguments now. But anyway, this is a good achievement in itself. So it's more or less like the first argument itself. Okay, prime mover. Then second one is that of uncaused causer, someone who himself is not caused but can cause everything else. So that's the second argument, and you can probably use the same logic to refute that as well. So if nothing can be caused without something causing it, then why do we think about something that can cause everything else without itself being caused? Okay, that itself also means our assumptions, okay, that we take for granted. So what we know as begging the question, you basically give the answer yourself because that's your presumption that you take for granted. And then there is the third reasoning. Okay, what is that? He's saying that everything that you see around you, including you, is a contingent being. Okay, so without you, the world would still exist. Okay, so you are contingent. Your presence is merely of that of a chance. Okay, if you weren't there, it will make no difference. However, there has to be something, that which is not contingent, but that which is necessary. Okay, something that is not based on chance, something that is almost absolute, in the sense that it is necessary. Without it, it is not possible. Okay, so we all, lesser mortals, everything else is contingent, but there is God, that is necessary. Again, the same criticism applies, that something that he believes to be true and hence uses his reasoning to say that it is true. Then the fourth reasoning that he provides is of that of absolute being. Okay, so what is an absolute being? So what he is essentially saying is that everything else is to be weighed in terms of its comparison with someone else. So for example, in your batch, someone might be the topper. Okay, so she's better compared to others. Okay, there might be compared to someone else, she must be better than B, and B must be better than C. So we weigh you, like we compare with you with that of someone else. Okay, but even the best in your batch will also be compared with someone else elsewhere. Okay, so everything else can be understood in terms of their their relative importance in terms of something else. But there has to be something, okay, that cannot be understood in that way. That has to be absolute. That's the perfection of everything else. Okay, So he's saying that that perfect absolute being is nothing but God. Okay. And then the last example that he provides, the last reason that he provides is that is basically teleological argument that yes, these matter that you see here, things which are out there, they are not sentient beings, so they don't know what their purpose is, but they still mm, move towards a purpose for which they exist. And what could possibly be giving them that purpose? He's saying that it must be God. God must have created, designed them, and given them a purpose. The idea of intelligent designer. Okay, the idea of intelligent design. An example of that would be, for example, if you were walking by the, so for example, if you were a member of a remote tribe who is not exposed to this so-called modern civilization. Okay, if you were walking by the side of a river and then you come across a golden watch. Okay, uh, what would your assumption be about that thing that you have never seen before? Would you think that it's a random thing like a rock which is there? Or would you think that this must be a contraption which has been created by someone who is intelligent? Okay. So he would say that, okay, so yes, of course, the said person will think that this is not merely something that is there but by accident, but because it's a design by someone who's intelligent. Okay. So based on that reasoning, they say that see the world around you, it is also not there by accident. The fact that you are there, okay, is a proof that there is someone who has designed everything. Okay. So there is a grand designer who himself is not designed. So that's the fifth argument that he takes to say that God is there. So these are the five arguments that he gives you. Okay, the first one is prime mover. The second one is that of uncaused causer. The third one is that of necessary being, someone who's necessary. Fourth one, someone who's absolute and not relative. Okay, and the fifth one is teleological. That is essentially from the argument of grand designer. So these are the five arguments that he gives to say that God exists. Well, we can also easily refute even the fifth argument, as you know, evolution and all that are already there to say that life can arise accidentally. Abiogenesis is essentially what it is all about. That life can arise given sufficient time and space. Life could emerge on its own without any divine intervention. So anyway, I'm not going into all those. Okay, so these are the five reasons that he provides for existence of God. Now try and understand the reasoning that he provides. Okay, now let us proceed to the idea of law that he talks about. Okay, so are you guys so far with me with the five different explanations that he provides for God? Are you guys with me so far? Okay. Okay, if that is clear, then we'll proceed to the idea of law that he talks about. Okay, these are related, you will see. Okay, yes. Mm-hmm. So you are still there in Augustine. Are you still in Augustine? Hello? So I will answer that towards the end because I'm in a flow. I will answer that only towards the end. Okay. Uh, so anyway, let's proceed to the different kinds of laws and their relation as was conceptualized by uh, Thomas Aquinas. Okay, so he essentially says that there are four different, laws. Okay, and they're also in that same hierarchy as he was talking about. That there is an uncaused causer who's at the highest rung, and then there are humans, then other stuff. Okay, out there. Okay, non-sentient stuff. Okay, animals, and then other stuff which are out there. In the same kind of reasoning is also applied here. Okay, so the first kind of law, the highest law that he's talking about, is the eternal law. Okay, so eternal law, as the name itself suggests, is eternal. It's unchanging. It's cosmic. Okay, it's always there. Okay, it's not subject to you and I thinking this or that. Okay, it's just there. Okay, so it says that, because God is perfectly rational, the eternal law is also rational law. Okay, and it also says that because God is rational by nature, the universe is also not random. It is also not it is not there just by accident, but by grand design of the God. So God has given all the laws that govern this universe. Okay, and those unchanging laws are the eternal laws. Now, these eternal laws, the first criteria of laws that he is talking about, okay, these eternal laws control not just you and me, the humans, but also everything else. So it includes both animate and inanimate things. Okay, so it governs you as well as this bottle, as well as the cow outside. Everything is governed by eternal law. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the first kind of law that this fella talks about. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Okay, now there are two different branches of this law. Okay, there are two different branches of this law. Okay, what are those two different branches of this law? The first branch is the law of nature, which is applicable to all. Okay, applicable to all. So for example, what is that? The first branches of that eternal law is essentially so scientific laws that you study. Okay, so for example, law of gravity. Okay, that applies as much as to this thing as it applies to me. So if I jump off this building, no matter how rational, how intelligent I am, I will fall. So everything is subject to the first branch of that law, that is law of nature. It also includes, although there are differences, but also includes other laws. So that he calls law of nature. So for example, animals have desire of reproduction. Okay, so do we. So yes, we participate in the laws of nature. Okay, uh, but then there is another aspect of this law. Okay, that which applies only to humans. Okay, the sentient beings, because they are different from everything else. Okay, so that second branch of law applies to our behavior, as to how we ought to behave, what is moral conduct. Okay, so these are the two different aspects of the eternal law. Okay, the first is the law of nature, the other aspect is the law of behavior. Okay, as to how to behave morally. Okay, so but one thing about eternal law is that you and I can never know for sure the entirety of eternal law. Okay, no one can say that they know every bit and piece of eternal law. Okay, be it the moral aspect or be it the law of nature. Okay, now that part has been said. So yes, no, not all scientific laws have yet been completely discovered. In fact, the very idea of scientific approach is that you know about things incrementally. There is gradual incremental illumination of the unknown. No scientist claims to know everything about the nature. Okay, the hubris does not exist. The hubris you see is on the other side, who claim to say that they know everything. Anyway, so yes, the eternal laws are such that it's out there, and according to Aquinas, it's not knowable in its entirety, or as it is truly is. You can only know part of it. So for example, we know some parts of the eternal law, be it either the laws of nature or on the other hand, laws of behavior. Okay, so why is it that we won't know the entirety of eternal law? That's because if you know the entirety of eternal law, you will know God, but no one can know God, is what is being said here by Aquinas. Okay, so yes, that's the eternal law. Okay, eternal law has two different aspects. Okay, so the next in hierarchy is natural law. Okay, the next in hierarchy is natural law. Now I told you that earlier, eternal law has two different branches. Okay, one is the laws of nature, the scientific laws, as we say. Okay, in which everyone participates, both animate, inanimate, rational or irrational. all are governed by the first branch. Okay, but the second branch that deals with moral conduct, okay, righteous conduct, okay, that's the branch which is applicable only to us, the humans. Okay, because biblically humans were God's special creation. Everything else out there has been created to serve God's creation, that is humans. Okay, so that's why you don't see uh, scriptures prescribing, eating animals, because they are there to serve the necessities of human beings. You don't see many scriptures, especially in the Judeo-Christian tradition, prescribing eating. Of course, some animals are not to be eaten because they are not kosher, but generally there is no such prescription of from of eating animals. So anyway, so why is that? Because humans have a special place. Okay, so what makes them special? It's that they have been given a reason, capacity of reasoning. Okay, to arrive at a moral judgment. Okay, you might sometimes see that animals also seem to behave morally. For example, you might see that a lion that has just caught a baby wildebeest is not eating it, but instead, nurturing it. So what about that? Is that a moral behavior on the part of a lioness or lion? Not lion, maybe lioness. Okay. Mm, he would say that no, that's merely by sheer accident that they also, like, it's overlapping. Okay, sheer accident that they have acted as if they were behaving morally, but they are not really behaving reasonably, because they do not have the same kind of reason. Scientifically, we can refute that, because we can also give a scientific definition of what is reason, and whether the same idea of reason also participates in other animals. Okay, and it has been shown that some higher apes are well capable of having empathy. Okay, and hence they're also able to make some kind of moral judgment. Anyway, that's not what Aquinas would believe, though he would say that he said that humans have a special place. Okay, and God has given the reasoning capacity in humans. Okay, so, and by virtue of your reasoning capacity that God has given, the part of the eternal law that is revealed to you that relates to moral judgment is the natural law. So I hope you guys understood. So the second branch of eternal law, okay, that is concerned with right conduct. Okay, that is the one that you can identify, that you can find out using your reasoning capacity. Okay, and that's the natural law. Okay, so it's not the first branch. Okay, so if someone says that is gravity natural law? No, it's not natural law. It's a law of nature. Okay, but it's not the natural law, because natural law is only concerned with the reasoning, so far as it is dealing with moral conduct of human beings. Okay, so yes, human beings have a share of the eternal reason, but not in toto, because if you had entirety of that reasoning capacity, then you will be God. But you have been given part of that reasoning capacity, and if you apply that reasoning capacity, you are able to discern between good and evil. Okay, so this participation of the eternal law in the rational creature, okay, basically the second branch I'm talking about, is called the natural law, according to Aquinas. Okay, now here's the thing, okay, that should concern you and should concern me. So God has given us reason. Okay, and if you apply reason, okay, then you are able to arrive at how to behave rightly, justly. Okay, and if you do not behave in a just manner, okay, if you behave in a sinful manner, then there'll be consequences for that. Okay, so to avoid that, God has given you reason. But the thing is that the reason that God has given to all of us, not all of us come to the right conclusion. You hear about all these horrible incidences of rape, murder, and whatnot happening every other day. So if God has given reason to all of us, why is it that we still do not arrive at the right conclusion? Okay, as Aquinas would say, why is it that many of us choose evil over the good? Okay, Now, answering that is very difficult in the sense that why has God made us imperfect? God might as well have made us, given us the perfect capacity of reasoning. And maybe not of the same kind as God has, but at least all of us could have been given equal share of that reason so that we all come to the right conclusion. Okay, but God hasn't done so. Why hasn't God done so? So is it like deliberately something that the God has done? If God has deliberately done so, then when we do evil, when we are doing something that is not justified, is that our fault, or is that the fault in how we have been designed? So this is something that hasn't been answered. Anyway, so that's the second branch of the law. The third kind of law that he's talking about is the divine law. So what is divine law? Try and understand this. Okay, there is a little bit politics here as well, according to me. And as I told you, that he was trying to assert somehow the supremacy of the church over that of state, because it was losing control over the state. So he has to re-establish that connection again. So he has to say, he is saying that yes, every human being is capable of reasoning. If they reason well enough, they're able to identify the natural law. Fine, but that means everyone is equal. Everyone is at the same pedestal. Then that's the end of the debate. So where is the position of the church then? Where is the position of Christianity then? So he has to draw some connection there. Okay, so that's why he needs the third kind of, that's my belief though, my understanding though, let me be very clear. Whether you subscribe to it or not, that's a different thing. So that's why he comes, according to me, with this third kind of law, that is divine law. Now what is divine law? Divine law is nothing but the revealed law in the scriptures. Okay, the 10 commandments. Okay, what was revealed to Moses on Mount Sinai. Okay, the 10 commandments. Okay, so that and any other laws which are revealed to human beings through scriptures. So that's the divine law. Now, why do we need divine law? Well, when everyone already, if they exercise the reason in the absence of passion, because your reason is corrupted by your passion, isn't it? So yes, if everyone is capable of arriving at the right conclusion, about natural law, if they apply reason, then why do we need laws of the scripture? So here's the thing. Even then, even when you are capable of using, arriving at, natural law, he sometimes somehow needs the authority of church over you, and church can have authority over you if there are laws that come from the church, not directly from the church. Church is saying that okay, we got it from the God, so ultimately that domination is established, isn't it? So yes, so there has to be a set of law that is again binding upon you. So that's why he talks about this third kind. That's according to me though. Okay, that's the third kind of law, that is the divine law, the laws which are revealed in scriptures. Okay, so yes, so that includes, as I said, the 10 commandments and any other law that you may come across. Okay, so what are those? Okay, let's look at 10 commandments. Okay, 10 commandments starts with God saying that yes, yes. Okay, sorry, I forgot. So I'll stop here. Okay, so let's do